Hey guys, thanks for listening to Kinda Dating, the comedy dating podcast where I, your host Natasha, Chandel, and influential guests break down the dating world and try to figure out why the do we all have commitment issues. Today's topic is tips to being a better boyfriend. Oh, let's do this. Hi, Kinda Daters. I'm Natasha Chandel. You're listening to Kinda Dating. Aisha is here with us.
Hey, in the
Our
house.
new in-person setup.
Yes.
What's going on in life? How's this week been?
Week's been good.
Guys, we record 2 episodes at a time.
Yeah.
So it's
I was like, am I going to be honest or should I make something up?
Make something up. No.
The week was great.
Do you have anything fun planned?
I'm going to Lake Tahoe. I will either be there during this episode or I'm about to go, depending on when it drops. But so I'll be there like President's Day weekend.
Is it like with family or with Bae?
Bae and friends. So one of my friends moved out there. So we're like visiting and having a good time playing in the snow.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. My in-laws are coming. We say in-laws. I'm not married, but they're basically like my in-laws. But they're the sweetest people in the world. So it's actually like such a knock on wood, you know, like with Asian families or especially Indians. There's like a whole thing about like daughters and mother-in-laws not getting along. But she barely speaks English, so
perfect.
It's amazing. Yeah. We like love each other. No, she's also a Gemini, and me and her like get along so well. So I'm like, oh, thank God. So they're coming, and I'm excited for that. We have our friend back here with us, but before I introduce him, guys, if you like this episode, screenshot this episode, tag us, and tell us what you thought about it. And remember to tell your friends that you listen to this podcast if it helps you. You guys message me all the time. I appreciate it, but tell your friends. Yeah. Also, leave us a 5-star rating or review and follow us on social media. We're at Kinda Dating, especially on Instagram and TikTok.
And I am at Aisha Says Dance everywhere.
I'm at Natasha Chandel on Instagram and Facebook and Natasha.Chandel on TikTok. Okay. Let's get into this episode because this one is for the guys. So ladies, feel free to pass this on to your guys because we got you on this one. So dudes, you got the girl. You wined her, you dined her, you ate her pussy like dessert, you booed her up. Now she's bae, and you're her boyfriend. Yes. Those are some big ass shoes to fill. So you are doing everything. So are you doing everything you can to keep your end of the relationship intact? Are there ways to improve, to actually be a better boyfriend so both of you can get the most out of your partnership? Well, we got the best person to talk with us today because if you weren't listening to the last episode, go back and listen because he is a great actor, a social media star. He's known as multiple things, including Smiling Guy, but we are here today with internet boyfriend, James Tang.
Hello. Hi.
Hey.
Hi. Good to see you again.
Maybe the one tip is to talk in that voice.
Just talk in this voice and everything goes your way.
It kind of does. Do you think that?
I think it doesn't hurt. I think it doesn't hurt having a voice that I think people would consider attractive. And I could just say really sus things, right? The moon landing was faked. And people would be like, maybe it's true.
It's true.
It does help.
It really does.
It's a weird thing. Yeah, I don't know. It's a primal thing because I've looked into the psychology of it where if you just say something confidently, people believe it.
It's true.
And if you have a voice, I think that adds to the gravitas of it. I think it would probably be even more.
Yeah, facts.
Should I intro myself?
Yeah,
again?
well, I want to, for people who didn't hear before, tell us a little bit about Internet Boyfriend again and how that kind of persona came to be.
Yeah. So I'm an actor, and I started on TikTok in around April or May 2020 because everyone was doing it. I wanted to be cool, and did terribly. And then I took a class that tried to figure out my social media, and basically came down to started talking about relationships. And then a friend, as a joke, was like, "Why don't you make more thirst traps?" And I was like, "No, I don't want to do that." But what about emotional thirst traps? And then that slowly. Because emotional thirst traps is a very wordy label. And then eventually I was like, internet boyfriend. I feel like it's a lot simpler, quicker, trying to practice my marketing skills that I've learned along the way, I guess. Yeah. And just internet boyfriend. And that kind of stuck. And then that kind of helped blow up my account a little bit. Yeah.
And when you're kind of coming up with the ideas for internet boyfriend and sort of these emotional thirst traps, do you kind of learn things along the way as you're doing it? Or how are you kind of coming up with these ideas of what to do? Or is it just going off of your instinct?
A lot of them have been, just instinctual of like, what would I do in this situation? A lot of it is trying to problem solve like, okay, what are some things that, women are having trouble with that I see on comments in the internet and stuff, And so much of it, I think, is like EQ, understanding just emotions in general or being open to them and
Right.
communicating through emotions and stuff, or just like addressing other people's emotional needs. And so, just kind of just like little things that I've seen that people have issues with. I mean, I'm still surprised by like the response sometimes, where it's just like people get like turned on by things where I'm just like, oh,
Yeah.
this is just like me just wanting to like cook you dinner and give you a massage. And then it's just like all these like thirsty comments or something. I'm like, what is happening? I'm so confused, but I'm going to try to learn and use this to improve myself and my content. There was a sort of trend that went around a couple months ago by a creator named Strange Kevin.
Huh. I don't know that creator.
It was basically like he was doing some stuff. It was literally all nonverbal, but it was like looks, certain looks, and he was giving like kind of like bedroom eyes kind of looks. Because I think he has like really big eyes, and people were like analyzing. Women were analyzing it too. Mainly women. I think guys like just tried to replicate it and end up looking like serial killers and stuff.
Yeah.
Where like one woman was explaining how he has really big eyes, so you can kind of see the expressions a lot more easily. And so like just like the way he like looked the camera up and down kind of thing.
Sure.
Was like women were catching it and guys were like, I don't understand. Which it's not always 100% on each side, but it's like that tends to be like the bell curve that it skews each way. So like seeing the comments on there and like why, I was like, even I was, as a guy that I feel like is kind of connected emotionally, I was like, really?
Wow.
This guy? Interesting. Or at least not even just this guy, but it's just what he's doing, like that is the thing. Okay, interesting. Let me at least try to emulate it or replicate it or something, I think I definitely had more success than the guys that like duetted it and look like straight up serial killers. like straight up, like people were like, I feel threatened by this man.
But listen, people love serial killers too. Did you guys watch the
that's a whole nother
what
topic.
was the
I didn't watch it, but the response that some people had. It's
no,
like,
but there was what was the guy's name? Why is
Dahmer.
Yes, thank you. He had people sending him like letters and money while he was in prison. Just crazy.
I think like Charles Manson got married to someone through like the prison glass.
Happens a lot.
Yeah.
Insane. People have daddy issues.
It's like a whole name
next
that
level. But it's because I'm very curious. Like in the last episode, you told us that you were single, single,
double single,
IRL. You added in. So do you feel like a little bit more accountable now if you were to date somebody and they were to look at your social media and be like, hey, you portrayed yourself as internet boyfriend. You seem to like know your shit. Why the do you not know your shit in real life? Like,
right, I set the bar really high for myself.
Because I don't know, but do you feel like this, Aisha? Like, I feel I had to be more accountable once I started the dating podcast.
Oh, sure.
Right.
Because then you're like, oh, I can't discuss this and not tell people what to do, but we try not to tell people what to do, but make suggestions and then not do anything to improve myself.
Right.
But do you feel like that?
I mean, I feel like I'm someone that always tries to improve myself every day a little bit, And I think that's the foundation of a good relationship, though, is communication and growing together. And so I think if someone, I don't know, it'd be kind of weird if there was an expectation, I guess, but if someone didn't communicate to me that like, oh, I feel like this could have gone better this way or something. It's like, oh, of course, that I would love to, change my behavior or, how I do certain things or say certain things or whatever. But I mentioned in the previous episode that I feel luckily having, like actor training and Meisner training and stuff, like being able to pick up on things is so helpful just to be like, just I think just people's responses and just where they're at, like in the
like
moment
social cues and
body
if
language,
some
mostly
body language.
part,
It's
yeah.
such a huge thing. I feel like my boyfriend's pretty good, except he doesn't read. Like some days, if I'm actually like gone through some shit, sometimes I keep it to myself, but I've like just cried. And like you can tell I just cried. My eyes, I can't hide shit. My eyes are watery and it's like all kinds of, and he's just like in his own happy land. He's like, hey baby, great to see you. Okay, off I go. I'm like, this is him. I'm like, okay, have a great day. So like he doesn't have that, like he can't read. He just knows when I'm angry because I won't speak. That's how he knows. Yeah, it's just me. I'm like, and I just turn away, but like can't read the other emotions. But but because you've been a performer, you can like see those subtle things a little bit more.
Honestly, I feel like everyone, not just guys, everyone, because but like mainly guys should like probably take like the first year of a Meisner program or something, because it really trains you to listen and respond to other people, because that's a lot of the things that we learn as students, that like people are in their head all the time. I think especially guys, but everyone's in their head, and the training, like it trains us to get out of our heads and like, actually see and like really see someone, rather than thinking about what the next thing they're saying is, or like what they're thinking about, what other people are thinking about them, kind of thing. When most of the time we're all thinking about ourselves anyway. So then it's like you just focus, just turn the focus a little bit, and it's just like,
From kind of all, now I'm making you an expert. From all your internet boyfriend work, you're a dude. You have a lot of dude friends. Do you think in general, like guys are out of touch with how to be boyfriends? Like when you hear your stories from your guys, or you're doing this, like you kind of mentioned a little bit from the comments you read. Do you get that as like a gauge that dudes are really not stepping up? Or do you think like most are kind of getting it right? And
I think it depends on different things for sure. Like the guys I hang out with, like it's something I noticed recently, that it's like, we have, there's a lot of positive masculinity within like most of the guys I hang out with. Yeah, and I love it because like we're also all like Asian actors,
You say positive masculinity?
Positive masculinity.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, we're just like, I love you, bro, like hugging it out.
Nice.
Yeah, just like hanging out and like just really making sure that we're like, connected with each other and spending time with each other and stuff. And I think honestly, I don't know if it's necessarily, I guess, stepping up as a boyfriend in terms of like, I guess the thing is, it's like a language thing between men and women. And I think guys try to solve problems the way they think, or we think is like how we would solve it, which would work for a guy. And then women solve the problem for how women would solve the thing. I think this is for everyone in general, though, that like people just try to relate to other people as if everyone thought exactly the same.
Right.
I think there's some name for that fallacy or something, I think. And so I think it's just another level and layer of that, where guys try to approach situations as guys, and then get confused as to why, how come you're upset at me for saying it like, they're saying something like that. It's like, it's not what you said, it's the way you said it or something, these like stereotypes and stuff. But it's like to me, like the kernels of truths, or where they come from, is really that miscommunication.
Right. Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. Because sometimes like, there's often this, men are from Mars, women are from Venus kind of discussion. But sometimes I also just feel like, man, so many messages and comments and stuff we get, sometimes I'm like, people just fucking, some of it feels like common sense to me. And I'm like, how did you get that wrong? I mean, the fact that your stuff is so popular says that there's something that feels a little bit missing, right? Like, I know when I was on the apps, like a lot of the things that I would read or my friends would say is like, now they're looking for emotional intelligence. And that's like
everyone, that men are looking for, or that women?
Women are looking for emotional intelligence, but also vice versa. When I was on apps and I would see guys on there, like they would write emotional intelligence as like a thing that they were They were either looking for or were like, I read a book on emotional intelligence, which probably says a little bit about their emotional intelligence. But do you feel like there's a difference in that area? Do you think women are a little bit more emotionally intelligent or connected? And what is that explanation for guys? Like,
what do you mean the explanation of?
Like, why are you not?
Oh, okay. The explanation I had heard that kind of like was, just a basic summary was like, at school, the girls are on the playground talking to each other and kind of gossiping and stuff, and guys are just trying to hit each other with their sticks.
Yeah.
And I think it's definitely, I think it comes down to, I guess, like our social power, quote unquote, in that like generally the bell curve, of course, but like the bell curve, and also just, I guess, the history of society, like guys and men are physically stronger, bigger and stronger. And so that strength comes just from within, whereas like women's strength comes from relationships and the relationships they build. And so it's like guys don't necessarily have that like expectation and skill set maybe put on them either.
Yeah.
And so I think that's definitely part of it. I think there is definitely wiring too, just like the things we prioritize and look at and just like input into our minds and process are a little, can be, seen differently. But at the same time, there's things that are like stereotypically like masculine, like problem solving or whatever, that like there are women in my life that only problem solve. And I'm like, can you just listen and relate to me, please?
Yeah, it is, because my nephew is 4 now, and he's a boy, and it's nephew, sorry. But it's crazy to see his reactions to things, because I'm like, where did you learn this? Why did you learn to not, he just sometimes shuts down and he won't talk about what's bothering him.
Right.
But nobody has told him that, because my brother and sister-in-law are very much like trying to get him to talk, and he doesn't talk. And you're like, what's, when he comes home from school, hey, then how was school today? What did you do? I don't know.
I don't know.
You're like, what? Anything that you remember that you did? Like, I don't know. But if you tell a girl, like his, my sister-in-law's friend's daughter and him are the same age, and they hang out all the time, and she's like, I did this, and we did this, and I went to this, and teacher gave me this, and he's just like, I don't know.
Right.
And we're like, did you do anything? He's like, played. We're like, is that all you did today is play? Like, then we had to like be like, who did you play with?
Right.
What happened? Like, to drag shit out, but where does that come from?
I think that some of that is wiring, because those are the stereotypes too, right? When it's just like that's not like, I think it was like a joke on the internet years ago where it's like, when you ask a woman about her haircut, did you get a haircut? And it's like, yeah, of course. And I talked about the process and like the hairdresser and then what they talked about. And then it was like, did you get a haircut? Yep.
Yep.
Yep. And it's like, I think there is definitely, wirings within us that like, that we like kind of gravitate towards and like as our primal programming. But I think what makes us human is being able to identify that and also like try the other side and learn about the other side and develop that too.
Do you think that there's something that women might not be understanding about men? Like, before we get into ways that, guys can improve being better boyfriends, is there something that women could do a little differently?
I think it comes down to both sides kind of communicating in their own way and not necessarily like I guess thinking about how the other side might prioritize things, But I do feel like, I don't know, I feel like women, y'all go through so much that you're fine, and that a lot of the onus is on guys. And I think honestly I think that's fair considering history and stuff and like all these things. And I think, I mean, to me, visually, it comes down to that whole thing, that dynamic we talked about in the last episode. Though, the woman is completely dressed up, glamorous, and the guy is in like an untucked like shirt with the suit that's just not. And it's like, come on, like is that? But I feel like society also has like accepted that.
Yeah,
right.
It's like not giving us like moving the bar up for us,
right?
And like, it's like so low, or the expectation is so low that it's like when it's like slightly moved up, that like I think it's like when you're used to privilege, everything seems like discrimination or whatever. And it's like that kind of opposite. It's like, oh, now we have to have emotional intelligence.
Right.
It's like, yeah. Is that not like the baseline of being a good human being? Like, why can't that just be normal, you know? But it's like, I have to go out of my way to do, whereas like, I think there's so many things you guys have to do that is only really, really being talked about now because of like the rise of TikTok and stuff that like men specifically didn't understand you had to go through.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do think that, women tend to take on a lot more burden in the relationship, but I do think like learning to communicate or really learning that the other person is not psychic, I think is like a big one. I do think before you get angry, communicating it along the way, because sometimes we're thinking something and going, well, it's right in front of you. Why wouldn't you understand that this is what I'm saying? But I've just learned you just have to say it.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
really
you just
do.
have to be like, this is how I like this. This is how I don't like this.
Yeah.
This is what I'm expecting on this day. So that they're not like, you guys aren't making it up in your head, because that often tends to be the thing. Like, I just didn't know. You didn't tell me.
Yeah.
And women feel like, well, why should I tell you? You should have thought about it.
Right.
Because we do. But, it might be wiring. We're taught to think holistically about things. And guys tend to be a little bit more just like focused on what's in front of them.
Yeah.
So there's some working around that wiring for sure.
Yeah.
We have a couple listener Q&As. I think we, because we're a little short on time, we're gonna go into some of the main ones. Wait, this is a fun one, I think. Or maybe this one.
Yeah.
That's a fun one.
Okay. So question from Tyler. He says that how can guys be confident around pretty, I'll say attractive, successful women?
I think for me, there's a lot of this, I guess, the pedestal mentality that like putting, especially with attractiveness, unfortunately, that's like part of our wiring, I guess, where because someone is attractive, somehow we just put them up, oh my God, where it's like, they were just born with these features, like, or surgically created them or whatever. It's 2020, it's 2023, it's LA, it's,
Very popular.
But I think there's still like, that's fine to have that. But I think even just acknowledging that, acknowledging one's own feelings, that you make me nervous, but I had to come over here and say hello kind of thing. But also being warm, being a giver, in terms of like, because I think people approach not just dating, but also like networking or something. People think I'm going out there to get. And I think it makes me feel guilty and weird for networking. And then like for dating, it's become the norm. It's like, oh yeah, I'm just trying to go get some. I'm trying to get.
Right.
But whatever, this is my thing now. Versus like, why don't we go out there and just give each other our experiences as humans, And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. And I think being okay with that, and that's an unfortunate thing I think society has really hammered into all of our heads, is that like, if you get rejected, that's the worst fucking possible thing that could ever happen to you, and you're useless, you're a piece of shit, single on Valentine's Day. Like that kind of, right? Like that, like emotion, when it's like, I think we need to teach ourselves to be okay with failing, quote unquote failing, which really just like, it's just not a right fit.
Yeah.
It's just not a fit.
Oh yeah, we say that all the time. Also just like treat people like humans, because I think it's the same thing. Like somebody who you might deem pretty and successful, they're not better than you.
Sure.
They're not worse than you. They're just your equal.
Maybe they're
and
racist. You never know. You never know.
Anything's possible these days, They could be a Republican. No. We like you guys too. It's okay. But it's like, how do you, to approach them, you just treat them like any normal human. And you'd be surprised how much they would appreciate that.
It's true.
I mean, something I've heard too is just like, sometimes the most beautiful woman, like the more down to earth you approach and talk to her, the better the response is, because most of the time the guys that are approaching her are just like, like,
it's true.
And it's something I've heard. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is a good question
from Mary. Okay, so Mary has some stuff to say. Mary says, men monologue. They don't dialogue. I hate it. When I meet a man, he just talks about himself. I ask men questions about them and also talk about myself, but they just don't ask me anything about me. In other non-dating scenarios, I find people balance questions. It's so specific to dating. Yeah.
I feel like
it was a statement, but there's a question in there.
Statement.
I feel like as a guy, I don't know if it's as a guy. I mean, after becoming an actor and more, I guess, content creator, and I do find myself waffling on a bit sometimes. I think that's definitely something guys can work on is the curiosity aspect and asking about other people.
Yes.
I think there are definitely certain guys where things have just kind of been given to them so that they kind of feel like this is the norm. You know, I think so many people just operate out of either what's normal or what it's either what's normal to them or what they think the other person wants to do. And so, or wants to hear. And I think.
Let me ask you this. Do you think guys would ask more questions of a woman if they were more interested in her? Do you think it's a reflection of interest? Or are guys just like selfish as
Well, here's another thing. Actually, you mentioned interest. Because sometimes there's that really terrible advice, I think, for both sides, where it's like, you have to pretend you're not interested.
Right.
And it's like, what the fuck?
I know, we're so against that.
Right? And I think maybe that's part of that. I think it really comes down to each person, you know? So maybe the guy is just pretending not to be interested because that, I don't know, makes him seem like, quote unquote, higher value or whatever.
Cool or
there's
whatever.
that. Or like is maybe too nervous to ask questions. That could be a possibility. I'm not forgiving or excusing any of these things, but I think these could be the potential reasoning behind it. I don't know how one would, I think it depends on the situation, but like as a woman in that situation, I feel like if it's nervousness, then maybe like helping to take the lead to offering some things about yourself. But if it's truly like, and I made like $6 million on crypto last week kind of thing, like that kind of guy, I think that's pretty obvious that like, okay, maybe just.
It's just like a narcissist thinking
just
about
let this person go. Yeah. Just like.
But it is like for guys listening, like if maybe you might be the person that feels nervous in those situations, I think it's good sometimes to prep questions in advance that you might be thinking because it's hard to be present when you're nervous.
Yeah.
And I've done that lots of times where sometimes I'm about to take a meeting and I'm nervous about something. And so I prep in advance of like what things I might want to talk about if conversation dulls. So that, you know, it's not this awkward silence or rambling on about something. And I think if you're like, well, I don't know anything about them, like look at their profile again before you went out with them and just see like if it said anything, where they're from, how many brothers and sisters do you have, like anything,
like
the weather. We can talk about anything. But there's lots of like icebreaker questions that you guys can also Google.
Right. Yes.
And I think it also helps to like going into dates and knowing what you're looking for, because then you can ask questions based on that.
Yeah.
You know? So that just opens more up there too.
I think also this is something I learned as an actor taking a commercial class, which I think again comes down to like men and women, the differences where I think guys, we do laundry lists. And so it's like, what did you do today? You know, it's like, oh, I woke up, brushed my teeth, ate some cereal and drove over here, you know? Whereas like commercial auditions, they're not looking for that. They want to know your personality and stuff. And I think that's the same thing with what women are looking for on a date. And it's like, it's really about the mental experience. So it's like, you could start with like, oh, I woke up and I started brushing my teeth and I noticed that like my toothbrush was running out of batteries. So then maybe I want to, you know, but then it's like, it's really about exposing and expressing your thought process behind things. I don't know if the battery thing was even a good example, but just like, your experience of what is your point of view about things.
Yeah, people, I know this isn't the right term to use, but people forget that like we are walking brands, even though you might not be a performer, but you are still a brand. And at this point, especially with all these, like everybody's a profile, you don't exist outside of this brand. And sometimes people just like want to get to know who you are, but they also want you to ask them about their brand and like, what are they about? So that like you guys can see if your brand values align, you know? I know it sounds like so stupid marketing stuff, but it's kind of true. Like we just kind of are. I mean, you kind of said a lot of the stuff that you gave a lot of tips along the way of, I think people need to communicate maybe in the way the other person communicates versus like, this is, so like love language. It's not about how I perceive love. It's how somebody else perceives love. But what are some other like easy ways you've learned from emotional thirst traps of being a good boyfriend?
I mean, the very start is to treat the other person, like a human, right? And I think it is also like at least taking the effort to kind of look into like, oh, okay, what are some like common issues that women have, and what can I bring to address those? Because I think a lot of it does come down to that the emotional, addressing the emotions and like soothing them. If there's a problem,
you do a good video about listening.
Right.
There was one, I think you did an emotional thirst trap where you were just like, I hear you.
I love that.
And it's like, sometimes that's all you need.
Yeah.
True.
To be seen and heard as your own person. Because I think that if we go down to stereotypes, it is about guys always wanting to solve the problem because that's how we want to help. But you're a grown adult. You don't need someone necessarily, I'm sure you've thought of those solutions already.
Right.
I mean, it's a trend that's happening more lately, which I think is great, is people know to ask, like, do you want a solution or do you want an ear? But I feel like it's always good to default to the ear first. And then if a solution needs to arise or if you want to like suggest one, then that can happen. But I think always lending an ear to it's really about letting the other person feel seen and heard. And because to reference, there's a video on the internet called, I think it's called The Nail. It's about a woman with a nail in her forehead, literal nail in her forehead. And she wants to talk about the nail and how it makes her feel. And the guy wants to pull it out. Yeah. And it's like, but she doesn't want to pull it out. And he's like, well, if you just pull it out, and it's the stereotype. But I think it's important to try to just meet in the middle kind of situation,
There was one that my friend was recently telling me about. He, lives with his fiance now, and he was saying his learning curve that he had always kind of lived with his family before that, never lived by himself, and didn't realize how much his mother was doing for him until he like lived with his girlfriend or now fiance. And so when he thought that when he was at, like, she would say, they need to clean on Saturday, he would be like, well, what do you want me to do? He thought he was being helpful by saying that.
Right.
And she was like, you don't understand. Like, me having to answer that question is another layer in my mind where I would just like you to see that there are dishes and just do them.
Right.
Instead of me feeling like I'm momming you or babying you, because that's another layer for me to think about. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. It's true. Like sometimes, and that's what I had to train my boyfriend to do a little bit. But it's fine. It's okay. It's just like you've learned that you just need to say it sometimes. Like, hey, I don't need to tell you to do this. You see it, just pick it up. Like,
right. And that's, I think, also comes back to like society as a whole. Really, there's just kind of babying men.
Yeah.
I'm part of that, like there's things where I was just like, oh, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to organize and stuff. And we've talked about this in my family too, where my sister kind of picked it up along the way too. Because my mom was like, well, we didn't teach both of you, but then she picked it up somehow. And I was like, yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's a wiring thing between men and women. I don't know. Or it's like, for me, certain things where I'm like, okay, I want to clean this, but I also feel like work that I need to do is really much more prioritized. So I just end up leaving it. But I think that also it's beyond that, where I know there's certain cultures too where the babying of men is like the norm, and it's like this is just the norm. This is how we do things. Where it's like it hurts everyone, right? Because then the guy is like doesn't have any skills that can help him. Yeah, if he lives on his own or whatever, has like a girlfriend or partner that just expects these things to be done.
Because it is like a partnership nowadays, and it's a lot more about equals. And it doesn't mean that you have to do and tit for tat every single thing equal, but it's like, you know, we have a thing where if I cook, he cleans. If he cooks that day, I clean. If he does vacuuming because the vacuum's honestly really heavy. It's like basically the size of me and it's my weight. So like I can't push that bitch around. So like he does that, but then I'll do the like certain cleaning that he doesn't do.
Right.
And then that's how you kind of offset it a little bit.
Same.
But we had to like talk it out.
Yeah.
And be like, hey, I'm going to do this. You do this. But like along the way, if you see something, pick it up.
Right.
Like
Right.
don't, you know,
Sure.
wait for
Yeah.
that.
And that sounds like good communication.
Yeah.
Because I think even though it logically is true that it's like, oh, I shouldn't have to tell you to do this. It is true, but it's also like, unfortunately, it's not very good in terms of like, yeah, it's just like, well, then you should be doing that instead of like communicating and talking about like, oh, I have no idea how to do that. I've never learned how to do that.
Right.
Like, can I at least start somewhere and learn?
Exactly. Well, James, I know that you have a tight heart out, so we're going to let you go, which I feel like that you just use that in your video. Just do a smiling guy right now. Thank you so much, James, for being on this episode. Once again, how can everyone find you?
I'm James the Tang on all socials. I'm most active on Instagram, TikTok, and starting to on YouTube. And I guess Twitter, if that's still alive
Thing.
in a few weeks.
Right. I know.
thing.
We'll see.
Right.
Well, thank you again, guys. Follow him. All of his socials will be in the notes of this episode. We're also on social media. We're at Kinda Dating across the board.
And I am at Aisha Says Dance across the board.
I'm at Natasha Chandel on Instagram and Facebook, Natasha.Chandel on TikTok. Thank you so much for downloading this episode. If you heard, or if you like something you heard, I'll be able to speak one day. Screenshot the episode and tag us on social media. Finally, I know it seems tough out there, but just try. Till next time. I hope you guys enjoyed that video and check out our next one. Thank you so much for watching, and please subscribe to this channel for more amazing dating, love, and relationship advice from me and so many expert guests. Follow us on socials. We're at Kinda Dating across the board. I'm Natasha Chandel, so you can find me too if you like. And join our newsletter on www.kindadating.com for lots of exclusives. See you soon.